thank you so much for joining us once again. This is the Big Sunrise Breakfast on Movie Television. And of course, this morning, and like today, the country, the continent, and the world at large, we are getting to celebrate the KK legacy. Today is the 28th of April, and as of Zambian calendars, this is what is referred to as Kenneth Kaunda Day. And like I did get to indicate earlier on this morning, we are joined by a senior citizen of the country and also a political activist. We're going to look at obviously different sectors or forms of life that this man led, obviously looking that he was also a freedom fighter and a politician. So this morning we're joined by a political activist and a senior citizen, Mr. Dante Saunders. Mr. Saunders, good morning and welcome.
Thank you very much for inviting me to your program, and may I say a very good morning to all your viewers.
We're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you.
All right, great. And also joining us is the former High Commissioner. This is Ambassador George Zulu, who also served as a permanent secretary in several ministries right here in Zambia. Ambassador Zulu, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Ms. Mamba. Thank you very much for inviting me.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you very much. I feel honored and greet the viewers that are watching us this morning.
Beautiful. Now, I think we're going to look at the life of KK. And for starters, there's obviously with our audience, there's different generations that, getting to learn about KK. Most of the recent generation, they've read about this man. You've had an opportunity to speak with this man, to work with this man. And for starters, maybe we want to understand in which environment or generation this man grew up from. I would want you, I'll start with you, Ambassador Zulu, to just maybe try to describe the environment of pre-independence, how the environment you grew up from was. What was it like?
I think, George, I think maybe we should pay tribute to President Kaunda, and I'd like to start off by at least trying to sing.
All right, I was getting there, but
trying to sing like the way President Kaunda used to sing. He sang very beautiful, and his favorite song was Tiende Pamozi.
Yes, we're going to do a trio.
Right, yes. Tiende pamozi nanti maimo.
Tiende pamozi ndimti maimo.
Tiende pamozi ndimti maimo.
Tiende pamozi ndimti maimo.
Kama itie, ayo tete yermwe.
Tie pamozi, tiende pamozi ndimti maimo.
This time he would say, Timenye nkondo ya mpawi ndi mtima umo.
Timenye nkondo ya mpawi ndi mtima umo.
Timenye nkondo ya mpawi ndi mtima umo.
Tiende
pamozi
ndi mtima umo.
Kaunda tiye,
Tie pamozi,
ayuthi tiye rimwe.
tie pamozi, tiende pamozi.
Thank you.
One Zambia, one
nation.
Zambia, one nation, one nation, one Zambia.
Ah, beautiful.
And one people.
And one people.
88 says one people, one nation.
One nation.
One Zambia,
One nation.
One Zambia.
People, one people.
one people.
One nation.
Thank you.
Ah, beautiful. Let's pick it up from there, Ambassador. Share with us the environment that you grew up from.
Well, I think we should thank God. Ourselves, my generation especially, that we were born when he was about to get our independence. We grew up in an independent country. Maybe when I was 8 years old, that's when we got our independence, in 1964. We were indeed divided people. As we were growing up, we were Ngonis. We thought we were a superior tribe in the Eastern Province. Every province, we thought we had conquered them. And we began to learn that at least we were one people. Because in those days, when you wanted to marry, it was to go home to your tribe, to go and marry within your people. But Kenneth Kaunda discouraged that type of life. I remember my elder sister wanted to get married to a Kaluvale man.
Yes.
My grandmother objected, said, no, you can't. Not a Kaluvale, not here. not in this family. You know, those people's works are to pick up buckets of feces and things. You can't marry Kaluvale. You are a superior person. So my father came and denounced that orientation. And then President Kaunda went on a system to educate our people that we can marry anywhere in this country. So intermarriages began. I was told that Bembas could not be allowed to marry Lozis because they were called Manyukunyuku and others. So Lozis, you are superior people, you can't marry to those people. But today, the achievement is that we have become one. We have become one. So we grew up learning that we were one people. So we are a privileged generation. We went to school free of charge. I never knew that one day I would pay for my children for school fees. My father was not a rich man. If there was no Kaunda, I would not have gone to school myself. I went to school. We could go to school, find books there, chalks, books. When it is finished, you write. You just take it to the teacher. The teacher marks it down and gives you a new one. So from grade 1 to university, it was free education. And we trained the best cadres, the best Zambians under that man. And the first time I got into contact with the president was on his yearly tours, holidays. He used to make his holidays in Mfue. He stayed at either Chichere or Mfue Lodge. One day he was at his Vapongo's house, Wezi's grandmother, and we were friends with Wezi because Wezi grew up with his grandmother in Malambo. So we used to go and play with him, and one day we played draft with the president, and it came out in the public that we had played, but he always was winning. We did not know. I mean, we did not know draft.
Yeah.
And when I came to college in Lusaka, I continued my contacts with the family. And when I finished work, when I finished college, I linked up with Panji and Wezi and Tilienji and Kaweche and everybody. So we became like a family. So we worked. State House was like my home. I used to go there to eat lunches with Tilienji. Every time that was lunchtime, we could go to State House to have lunch. At first, I thought I was going and eat in State House. We were going to find a lot of meat. We were looking forward to these presumptuous meals. But I was shocked that the man never ate meat. and Tilienji invited us to lunch of vingovi, boiled maize. I said, that's what they call State House.
House.
This is funny. I expected to have all these grandeur food, but that was not the man. So I would regard myself as having grown up under his tutorage. He became very close, but he treated me with respect. Young Zulu, young Zulu, young Zulu. That's how he called me. So we were a privileged generation to have grown up under that great man. He was a great man indeed.
Absolutely. Let me get your thoughts, Mr. Saunders, as well. Back then, pre-independence generation and environment, what was it like for you?
Well, I'm a little bit older than the ambassador.
Absolutely.
A little bit older than him, and I remember the colonial days. I was a teenager those days, and I remember meeting President Kaunda when he was not president at the time. I think he went out campaigning. There were two main parties at the time. It was ANC and UNIP. And it was a little bit difficult to make a choice. But then I met Mr. George Cornell and a friend of mine, Mishek Nyondo, who I worked with, was very strong in the party. And he's the one that introduced me to the president. And I remember asking him that time, do you ever think that we'll ever be independent? And he said, yeah, if you people support me as the young generation, we can obtain independence. And that was it. So I was given, working under Mr. George Cornell that time, a small little responsibilities, you do this and you cause problems. I used to ride a motorbike, cause some problems here and there, and fight against the whites and so on and so on, and which we enjoyed, doing. To us, it was all fun, and of course, I remembered the president from that time, and I was never really close to the president. But after independence, I was honored to have known him on many occasions. We played golf together, and I admired the President Kaunda very much. We had some differences. I had some differences with him, but at a later stage. But the thing that amazed me is that he brought this One Zambia, One Nation together. And it came at a time when colored people were colored people. Indians were Indians. White was white, and Bemba was a Bemba, and Tonga, and Ngonis were Ngonis, and things like that. But he managed to unite us all together and made us understand that whether you were black, blue, white, green, whatever color you were, if you were born in Zambia, you're a Zambian. And as such, we should work together. And that was done very nicely. And I hope this country continues with that particular vision.
Oh, wow, beautiful. Beautiful. Ambassador Zulu, we understand Dr. Kenneth Kaunda came from a teaching background, but the transition from a teaching background into, politics, how was it at the time? How would you describe it with regards to the transition? How was the levels of involvement with the young people in politics at the time? Braving up and getting into such, a career?
Well, President Kaunda was a writer. He has authored a few books. I think it is better for the young people of your generation to take time and look at these books and read his philosophy. But as you said, he came from teaching. His father was an elder of the church, a missionary sent from Livingstonia in Malawi to come to Zambia. And his father died when he was 8 years old. So it was, I think and believe, the circumstances of the time, because being a child of a missionary, he was associated with missionaries at Lubwa. And he was brought up in an environment which we would today call privileged environment. Though he didn't have his father, but his surrounding was that of good people, people who taught the importance of God. And then we have read that he was brought up by his mother, who did not have money. And he was a bright child. When he passed to go to, all from the time that he wanted to enroll himself into Subway or grade 1 at the school helped to build by his father. The headmaster said to his mother that we cannot take this young man on until you pay £2.6. The mother did not have £2.6. She asked the head that, can I go and look for money? You enroll him, I'll go and look for money and bring the money in. So this headmaster says, no, Iskaunda will keep the place. Go and look for money, go with him. So he felt pain of failure from that time. And I think these were the beginnings of his political thinking, to fight for things that he didn't have, to have them. When he passed to go to Munali, or he came to Munali, he and Lusaka, he could not also afford to pay for further studies. So he stopped school to go for teaching, because those were the privileged jobs in those days. So he went into teaching, not because it was his choice of the program of life, but because of circumstances. There were jobs, as Dante Saunders says, black, white, here and there. There were jobs for other people, for these blacks. There were jobs who were going to be clerks. There were male secretaries, in offices. So he, having come from his mother, was a teacher, so he took his mother's profession and went back to Lubwa to teach. To go into politics, it was also circumstances which the black people found themselves. He found that the white people were not giving the owners of the land what was due to them. So him and his friends saw that they could do something. They went to look for jobs. He even went to Zimbabwe. We are told that there, because he was a talented man, he was a singer. When he got a job as a pupil teacher in southern Rhodesia, he was drawing water from a pond. You have heard our teachers now complaining, crying that there's no house, there's no water. This is what the Kenneth Kaundas of this world passed through. So whenever he went to draw water, he found women drawing water. So to avoid competing to draw water, he could sit at a seat and he started playing his guitar. So women were not going, they were listening to his music. So he decided to come back to Zambia. He did not have money. He told me that he decided to come back, but he didn't have a fare to come back to Zambia. There was a Mr. Njovu who he remembered when he became president, but he could not find this man who paid for his fees from Southern Rhodesia to Northern Rhodesia. So these are events of life that brought him into teaching. These are events of life that brought him into politics. It was the environment that molded him to become a prolific politician that we had.
Very interesting. We're looking at, as we're building up to this, obviously, even at the time now, it was getting too political, and there was need now for the Zambians to get the independence. There was not only KK, obviously, we have the Kapwepwes of this world, the Nkumbulas of this world. It was this, class of men or boys that were spearheading this. But out of all this came out KK to be the first Republican president. What do you think made him stood out of the so many people, obviously, that had vied for leadership and trying to possibly be the top of Zambia's independence, but came out this man, KK? What do you think he had possessed that made him stand out?
First of all, I think I said that I was 8 years old when we got independence, so I was relatively very young.
Even with the interactions that you had had maybe later on when he became president, and with what his philosophies, even the books that, what do you think could have led to that?
Let me give Dante, who worked with him, and then I'll come in. Let Dante.
Yeah, I didn't actually work with him, but I had an opportunity to meet him when I was in my teens. He was very, very focused, in what he intended to do. At one stage, I thought to myself that Zambia belonged to the white people because we were controlled by them, and life was quite difficult under them, in the sense that you couldn't even drink a whiskey. You were not allowed to drink whiskey or beer or something. We had to drink some other drinks. We were not allowed in any hotels or any bars or any restaurants and things like that. And he began to, explain to us that, this is our country, and these people are visitors in this country. And, as such, the treatment that they were giving the black community was not right. And, he managed to convince everybody. And I think he was also very flamboyant, person. He was a very handsome person. There's no question about it. I mean, you can see from even his, at his old age, he was very talented and, very handsome young man at that time, and, likable, and he managed to push his agenda. And that's how, to me, I voted for him at that particular time and wanted him to be the president. Yes, he had a lot of also great people around him. He had
Yes.
Mainza Chonas,
yes.
the Kapwepwes, the Mundias, and, there were also great flamboyant people. And the person that I used to work with, Mishek Nyondo, was also a young person. Look, we're talking about people that were in the 20s or 25s that time, and So it was easy to convince the people of Zambia to rise and support him. And support him we did.
And you've mentioned, obviously, very interesting of how you've mentioned to say it wasn't so easy of how the whites were more dominant. But even when he started this agenda of pushing and making the blacks or the Zambians believe to say it's possible for us to be free from this, what was the general feeling of the people? Did even you yourselves think maybe you were going to attain the independence?
Personally, I didn't think that we were going to get independence, but I think he also suffered a lot. I mean, it was not an easy thing to just come on a political platform, you know. I mean, he was detained, he was locked up and went to jail and so on and so on and so on, but, you know, it was expected that time. And when he went to jail, that is the time it was a wake-up call for everybody, and people started thinking, well, you know, there must be something in this particular issue. And it excited us. It excited people who were not white. Because, you know, from the kind of treatment that we used to get, I mean, can you imagine that you were not allowed to be window shopping in town? After 18 hours, everybody must be in their respective areas where they stay. You know, we had the colored people at the colored quarters, kind of an arrangement. The Indian community had this and that, and you know, you know, something had to give, and it wasn't an easy task, but. Thank God we never went to an outright war. But had President Kaunda, you know, continued to be locked up or injured or, you know, something like that, they were killed or, you know, by the whites, I think then the people of Zambia would have risen.
All right, Ambassador, he was your boss. He made an appointment to you. Adding on to that.
Well, first of all, I think we need to look at your question that what do I think motivated him to get into leadership? I think leadership in every circumstance, in every situation, is given by God, our Creator.
Right.
Kaunda was born in a Christian family. He was modeled on the Christian principles, which he practiced all his life. When he joined politics in Chinsali, he heard of this man called Hari Mwanga Nkumbula, who was the leader of the African National Congress. ANC. They, with his friends, colleagues, Kapasa Makasa, Simon Mwansaka Pwepwe, Sokoni, and others, decided that they should also form a branch of the ANC in Chinsali. He tried agriculture, he succeeded, you know, he tried selling second-hand clothes in Mokambo, in Congo, you know, to make a living, to make a little money with his young wife and one child, Panji, that time. So they formed this political branch of the ANC in Chinsali. Then there was a big meeting in Lusaka, which took place in Chivolia, here in Lusaka. That was the first time that he had personal contact with Hari Mwanga Nkumbula. Hari Mwanga Nkumbula fell in love with this young fellow, with this fellow from the north. They were a militant group, and the elections were conducted, and Kenneth Kaunda was elected secretary of the party. And they decided now they have got these positions to move to Lusaka. So he moved to Lusaka into Chilenje. He stayed in Chilenje, not in that house.
Not in that famous house.
Not in that famous house. That was a privileged one. Now he's promoted.
All right.
But he lived where he's, I think they had, by that time, 6 or so children. They were living, the boys were living in a pantry. You know, those which have got doors which are cut in between.
Yes.
That's where the boys were packed. The girls were in the sitting room. The parents were in the bedroom. So he was promoted from there into what you are seeing now as a museum. That's Kenneth Kaunda. I wish they had gone to take the museum. That has
Back
house
then.
in Chilenje.
Whoa, that's some quite beautiful revelation. Right.
Now, he was not a person who wanted to do things or to be given things or to grab things. He was a person who was so humble, wanted to contribute in a group. So he was elected all the time to positions of authority. We are told that when Nkumbula was showing, was slackening in the fight, was not pushing strong enough for the independence of Zambia, the young militants decided to form UNIP. Kaunda by this time was arrested. He was sent to Kabompo in northwestern province. When he came back from that prison, I am told he was supposed to have been flown back from Northwest, but there was only one seat on that plane. So one white fellow was driving to Lusaka. He drove him in that vehicle to Lusaka. And he was told about the formation of UNIP, and they wanted him to go. But he did not want to go immediately. Everybody left. He wanted to say goodbye to his boss. So he says, Hari Mwanga Nkumbula pleaded with him, Kenneth, please don't go. Stay. You are the good one. He says, no, my friends have gone. I am going. So he did not run away like we are defecting now. He said goodbye to Hari Mwanga Nkumbula and went there. The president of UNIP that time was not Kenneth Kaunda. It was Mainza Chona. Mainza Chona gracefully left the seat to Kenneth Kaunda. Say, you are what the people want. So I want you to lead this party.
You take up the mpando like it is
Utole mpando nwako.
Nwako.
Muchitonga wadala.
Juno Yahweh.
Juno Yahweh. So Kenneth Kaunda became president of the United National Independence Party, which was a militant political side, just like the ANC. Mm-hmm. When Nelson Mandela went there, he went into as a youth league, as the youth president. Then Lituli was president of, until Mandela decided to form Umukonto Wesizwe. That's when they realized that there is potential here, there is something here. The same with Kenneth Kaunda. When these two groups were struggling, it was the ANC. The ANC, even our national anthem, is borrowed from the national anthem of South Africa.
Exactly.
Nkosi sikelele
Africa
tiende pa imani timtamande Zambia. All these Malawian songs, Zambian songs, South African, came from the same pot. So Kaunda was elected, given the presidency by Mainza Chona, a Tonga, who was the first president of UNIP. They led UNIP into independence. So this, I think, was a gift, a creation by God, our Creator. He was anointed, given to Zambia to be the first president. That's in my opinion.
Very interesting. And I think with One Zambia, One Nation, and with your earlier, submissions, you've spoken of how he even broke the odds of, marrying from within, and that encouraged, Northerners marrying Westerners, Westerners marrying the Easterners, and all that. But with regards to his message of One Zambia and One Nation, and also looking at the history of a first Southerner president of UNIP, giving it to him, at what point did we get to have the divisions of tribe that we may be battling with now, when this man fought so hard to unite the country? I don't know, maybe Mr. Saunders, you can start.
Well, you see, the politics of those days were very, very different from today, the kind of politics that we are seeing today. You know, if you look at President Kaunda's government, for instance, you'll find that, he ran the country well. Not with the so-called educated degree holders and so on and so on, no. But with good, dedicated politicians whose only ambition was to improve the lives of the people of Zambia. And they always looked forward. They looked forward. They had great people within his cabinet. Mm-hmm. And I must say also that we had great young men at the time who were extremely educated and very dedicated permanent secretaries at permanent secretary level. And the entire civil service was completely different, because at that time you had a very, very decent police, set up. You had, all the institutions that they ran were run by people who were dedicated to work, unlike we are seeing the situation today in our country, where corruption and things like that is like normal. It was abnormal those days in Kaunda's time. And I remember very distinctly, working with some of these ministers. I had the pleasure of knowing many of them through my business connections and so on and so on. And I remember once I was given quite a good tender, a good project, and all I wanted to do was to buy a person to pay for his dinner, just to pay for his dinner in appreciation. And that particular minister threatened to report me to the president. He says, you think you can bribe me or pay me with a meal or something? No, my boss, the president, gives us sufficient money to be able to stand on our own 2 feet. That was how the President Kaunda ran this country. That is the reason why you find that most of his ministers died in poverty, and most of his permanent secretaries and so on and so on and so on. Corruption came very quickly, and I'm, maybe partly to blame for coming up with MMD. At that time, we were a movement. Had I known that I was coming up now to bring in corruption, that is when it began. It was never like that in President Kaunda's time. We had, equivalent to ACC and DEC, a group of people you know, who, when you done something wrong, you know, they were on top of it. For instance, if you had, you know, they banned the foreign currency at one time to say that you could only take so much, you know, with you when you go on holiday or whatever the case may be. Anything more, you know, it was a crime. And I remember that particular institution called CITET. You remember CITET? Run by a few people. When that person called you to the table, there was no point in trying to deny, because they used to have the facts on the table before you even go to court. If you wanted to go to court to dispute, you could go to court. But in most cases, you know, when you see the facts on the table, there's no, what's the point of going to court? You just say, all right, I'm guilty, yes. You know, I had 10 kwacha, which I was trying to, you know, smuggle out of the country to go and buy extra, you know, this and that. And you would pay your fine. And the case would end just there.
With regards to leadership, before Ambassador comes in, and I love the fact you have brought out where it's been heard, it's been read to say most of his people that served in his cabinet went out of government with almost nothing. Could you attribute that to have been maybe on his style of leadership as a bad thing? How would you be able to refer that? Did he fail his team?
No, he didn't. In fact, that was the only way. I mean, you know, I wish we could find a formula here today with us here in Zambia now. When you look at the corruption, the level of corruptions, I wish we could follow the same mode that the President Kaunda used to take. Mm-hmm. Because if you found a minister wanting whatever the case may be, no matter how small it was, and if the president heard about that, you know, that was it. You know, that minister could lose his job, or the permanent secretary, and so on and so on. You know, we had a, you know, it was, we were well respected throughout the world because of the discipline that we had under the leadership of President Kaunda.
All right. Ambassador, style of leadership of President KK, in your view, how would you define it?
I think KK was bigger than his stature. When President Sata appointed me permanent secretary to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, I traveled with late Minister of Information to the United States to go and study the Public Information Bill. And then at the reception, I was told there was a gentleman looking for me. When I came down, this was the former American ambassador to Zambia. Former American ambassador to Zambia in the Kaunda time. The last American ambassador under Kaunda. He came to me and then we went to sit. He asked me, he says, how is KK? I said, oh, I think he is as fit as you left him. So after discussions, he says, you go and greet him. But do you know one thing? When I was taking leave of Kenneth Kaunda, there was the time of elections. The new party was coming in. Then I went to Kenneth Kaunda's office to say goodbye, that my time was over. Mm-hmm. I said, Mr. President, if you lost these elections, how do you want the people of Zambia to remember you? What do you want to be your legacy? Kaunda told me profound words that I don't think I will forget for Zambia. He says, I would want to be remembered as one who brought the nation of Zambia together, who brought about one Zambia, one nation. We came to government with 73 tribes, and we would not have managed because Africa failed to unite even where there are two tribes in one country. But we managed to bring the 73 plus into one Zambia, one nation. So I want to be remembered as one who brought the country together. One Zambia, one nation. That is the simple way Kaunda wanted to be remembered. That he united this country. Every time that there was a press conference at State House, you go there. Everybody seated, and Kenneth Kaunda comes to address the nation. When he sings, when he says, let's sing the national anthem, and he asks you to sit down to address, you know that there's trouble. There is trouble.
Right.
He is going to make ministers stand up. Fire. Fire comes when he just sings the national anthem. But when he comes up to sing the national anthem, and then he says, Kadionko ane, Kadionko, tiende pamozende mutim. You know that there is going to be discussions of either Ian Smith, John Foster, and everybody. So he was a president who wanted to unite this country. And for a president, he did not have a personal friend. That one is a personal friend, the president cannot touch him. That one is maybe a relative of this. Kaunda traveled alone and as president. This is what a president must do. You must travel alone. You must not have a friend so that you can discipline everybody. No friends. When he disarmed people by his personality. When there was that meeting that took place at the Victoria Falls between John Foster and him, one interesting statement that came out of there was when they put the two strokes together, John Foster came and introduced his ministers. Said, this is minister for so, this is minister for so, this is minister for justice. And when it came to Kaunda's 10, he also described his delegation. This is minister for this is minister for this, and this is minister for Marines. John Foster laughed. Mr. President, you have a minister of Marines when you have got no water. There is no water in Zambia, but you have a minister of Marines. Kaunda says, yes, President. I've also noticed that you have got a minister of justice when you have no justice. So the whole room turned into laughter. So it was easy now to deal business. Even when he handled Margaret Thatcher, the Zimbabwe issue was a very difficult issue. But Kenneth Kaunda and his best friend, the Australian Prime Minister, Malcolm Fraser, connived that Kenneth Kaunda should dance with Margaret Thatcher. When she comes, he should go pick her up and dance, so that he makes the atmosphere easy.
He was a fearless man.
Fearless one. So Kenneth Kaunda stood up to go and dance with Margaret Thatcher. That's what had turned out to be the dance of all time.
Yeah.
So Kaunda knew what time and what time to do it. When he is disciplining his minister, it was just on merit, on important reports, on reports that were before him, he could dismiss. Some of these reports, he was getting them himself. Kenneth Kaunda would drive alone in the evening Sometimes he would drive with his son Kaweche. There was a beggar in Kamwara. He could just go and pick Kaweche. Let's go. I want to go and give that man something. They would drive, the two of them. He comes back. He could see how the nation was running. One time we dismissed his best friend on the mines because of Fiabukaya. He was on that radio, listening to the radio. There was a Bemba program called Fiabukaya.
Fiabukaya, I know the program, yeah.
You know the program?
Yes.
He heard that a manager of ZCCM took workers to his farm, and somebody somewhere there died, and they were not compensated. The next day, Kaunda says, at a press conference, if there is anybody who has done this, he's fired. Please, we cannot work like this. He was fired. He was fired. So this man had a gift to run public affairs, but with love, with compassion. When he was defeated by the MMD in 1991, I came from Australia. We went to State House. President Chiluba came. This was the time he was handing over the affairs of state to the president-elect. Says, congratulations, Mr. President, and welcome to the seat of government. The decisions you take here affects all the people of Zambia. They took him around and then told him, Mr. President, this one is Chanda. Chanda is in charge of whatever the president wears, in charge of the laundry. Whatever the president wears, every day, he's in charge. This is Njovu. Njovu is in charge of the kitchen. Chef. Whatever the president eats, he is in charge. He's responsible. Chanda is MMD. Njovu is UNIP. We know them. But here, you look after them as Zambians. Take them as Zambians. Whatever their beliefs is nothing. But they are Zambians, civil servants, to save you. He left, went out. That's when he realized that he had no home. Where am I going? Mm-hmm. He had no home. His home was in Shambalagay. So, the government is told that Kaunda has got no home. He was given a guest house at ZCCM, guest house. But little did he settled, did they accuse him of having stolen books. Policemen were set on him, on Kenneth Kaunda. They searched him and collected everything. There was also talk that he was a big thief. He had stolen and stacked stacks and stacks of money in Swiss banks. They didn't lift his immunity. They brought in Scotland Yard from England to come and investigate this man who had been alleged to have stuffed a lot of money. They were here for 2 years. They found him clean man. Nothing, a clean man. They found nothing on him. To this day, Kaunda died with nothing, apart from the dignity that he got from the Zambian people. So he thanked the Zambian people for having given him the privilege to lead them. He loved education. One day I was driving him, when he had left office, I was driving him to Sinamisale to go and see his son, the two of us. We passed through Mchinji, then we saw some designed project going on. So I told him, I said, Amdada, look, mahona nchito zamena chita zungu. Kwa mava zungu chape. he denounced me. He said, there is nothing ya uzungu. There is nothing uzungu coming up. You should always say work of science. Science, scientific knowledge or scientific mind has no color. You blacks can develop anything. You can do anything. In this country, we thought, before we knew Americans were thinking of going to the moon, we had Zambians thinking of going to the moon. Here, Colosso, is it in Colosso?
Colosso with a tire.
Colosso had thought that Zambians could land at the moon. So he developed talent. He developed science as a way forward. I was very happy when the President of the Republic of Zambia, President Hakainde Hichilema, in Livingstone, mentioned that we need to put effort on science, technology. We need technology to advance like any other. So we are looking at a man who had a very clear vision of where this country was going to go. When the MMD came in, problems began. We began to return to tribalism. We began to dismantle what he had built.
I think also what is important here, George, is before the one must never forget that it was, KK used to always say, you know, we are not really free until our friends are free in Zimbabwe, in South Africa, in Namibia, in Mozambique, and so on and so on and so on. So this country, you know, sacrificed a lot because that was the president's vision. So, you know, we suffered a lot, and it was at the expense of our economic development. You know, when we started trying to support these countries as well to gain their independence, because we could never truly say we were independent if these countries were still going to be controlled by the colonialists. That is another big thing. Then the other big thing I think that the President Kaunda must be recognized for is the vision that he had. You know, if you look at SADC and you look at the AU, these were all the visions that President Kaunda had, him and his team. You know, I'm talking about the Nyereres and the Obotes and so on and so on. They came up with a vision. But, you know, and sadly for me now, when I look at that particular setup that we have now with SADC and the AU, I think it's not the way that President Kaunda would have liked it to be. And, you know, obviously we would have, even me today, you know, I would like to see that institution, AU and the SADC, you know, run the, to look after the interests of Africa and not just of themselves. I'm sure the Kaunda's vision was that, you know, any conflicts within Africa must be dealt with by African people and not worry about bringing in United Nations here and so on, and Russia and America to come and fight your battles here when we can do it ourselves. So those were the kind of visions that the president had, and which excited a lot of not only African people, but the Western world as well. We were quite excited about that. So it was a very big development that he brought out.
All right, beautiful. Adding on to that, I think with how instrumental Zambia has been, even now, I think the privilege that I've had to visit any of our neighboring countries, there's always a recognition of the name KK.
Yes.
You go to these countries, KK, you come from Zambia, the name KK always pops up in one way or the other. And Zambia has been very instrumental with the liberation of our region. Adding on to that, his vision of working with you know, the young people, most of the people that served in his cabinet were young. What do you speak of that, Ambassador? I don't know at what age you went into public service, but how was also his part of leadership into tapping into the young people to public service?
Kenneth Kaunda was good at identifying talent of the nation and growing it up. You remember that he became president at 40. He was not an old man. Mm-hmm. He was just transiting from youth to adulthood. So Kenneth Kaunda is a man who wanted to identify talent across the country, genuinely and honestly. I remember my own case. I was working at Zambia National Tourist Board. I was tourism promotions manager there. And one day I was running a program on Zambia National Broadcasting Corporation with Malao, Kenneth Maduma, and others. Mm-hmm. So I was in Mfue. I was told the president is also holidaying here. So why don't we go and have an interview with him? So I made contacts and I was given the opportunity to go and interview the president. So I went to Mushroom Lodge. I found him there, ready waiting for me, and says, "Oh, young Zulu, welcome here. Where do you want us to be?"
Yeah.
So we sat under a tree. I interviewed him, and I came back. It was aired. And 2 days later, I go home. You know, we didn't have cell phones those days. I had a land phone in Woodlands. Then I went for lunch. I picked my wife, went for lunch. I was told by my maid that there was a phone call for you from a Mr. Kaunda. He says it was a Mr. Kaunda.
Mr. Kaunda called you.
Mr. Kaunda called you and says he was going to call tomorrow. 14 hours, you wait for the call. So I said, which Kaunda? I was with Tilienji, I was with Panji. So it cannot be anything but the old man, the president. So I went out, but you know, when there is a call from the president, I went home by 11 hours to wait for 14 hours.
Yeah.
Then 14 hours on the dot, the phone rang. I went to pick it up. He says, hello. I realized that, that's him.
It's
that's
him.
the man.
Yeah.
He said, good afternoon, Your Excellency. He says, how are you? How is the family? Said, we are all well here, Your Excellency. He said, do you have time? I want you to come to State House tomorrow. Do you have time? Now, for the president to ask you to go, and I could not say I don't have the time.
You can't. The member said, why it was a willow. You can't say it.
I didn't sleep that day. And then I told the friends I told, they said to me, hey, you're going to meet the lion tomorrow. The advice is that don't look at him in the face. I'm told you'll collapse. He steers fire from the face. So don't look at him in the face. You will collapse. Or you will not say anything.
Wow.
So 14 hours, agreed, I go. I was surprised. I used to go to State House, but I used to use the other gate to go and see Mama Betty and Tilienji and play on the computer. That was the only place I saw a computer. So this time I'm entering from the official president's gate. I find enough Nyarugwe is waiting for me there. I say, baba mnaita chani. A president wembekeza moyo. Wembekeza ine. So he carried me up. I went into his office the first time I am visiting the office of the president. nakasuti kandi kakangamira pamubiri. I enter in there, I sit, there is a white secretary to the president, Mrs. Sleep.
Glorious.
Glorious Sleep.
Glorious Sleep.
Yes. She goes, oh, take a seat and let me inform the president. She goes in, she tells him I'm in. I found the figure coming out of the door, opening the door. It is the president himself with his white handkerchief. Come in, young Zulu. So I go into the state president's office where decisions are made that affect my life. First time. Then he tells me that, young Zulu, in my effort to identify talent, I have discovered that you can help us or help your country in the Far East. I want to send you to Australia. Me?
How, Mr. President?
A man from Wangeni village. All I had known was cattle, and we could see a vehicle maybe once in a day. Mm-hmm. Now this man is saying, I'm going to work in Australia. I said, Your Excellency, it's an honor. He says, okay, if you have accepted, go and sit. I'll do a letter to you, to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. I sat there with Mrs. Glorious. He drafted the letter, gave it to secretary. She typed it and signed KDK. That signature was a check.
KDK?
KDK was a check. You can go anywhere and you can be given assistance. You can be given anything. From that day, I found people look at me. I was changed. I was different.
From that very moment?
That very moment, I was a different Kanyamula Zulu. People were giving me honor, respect, dignity. I go to the office, I give my letter to the minister. Zulu, no, when do you want to go? I went, even where I went in Australia, I was treated because my ambassador, Jason Mfula, thought maybe I was from the OP. How can an officer, I was economic and tourism person in Australia, first secretary. How could this man come with a letter from the president? And then I went to meet his best friend, was the chairman of ANZ Bank, Australia New Zealand Bank. Mm-hmm. Kenneth Kaunda and him had agreed that it should be opened here. The ANZ had opened an office here. You remember that? Yeah. Willie Belly. Willie Belly, on arrival, gave me a loan of $280,000 US to buy a house for tourism in Sydney. If I was a thief, if I was not brought up by this man's philosophy, mm-hmm, I would have taken that money and put it in my pocket and asked the government to give us a house. But I bought a house in the name of ZNTV. We sold it when the embassy was closed. I said I don't want to leave any date. Mm-hmm. I would not want to pay. I went to the bank. I'm selling the house so that I can return the money. We sold the house, we returned the money. So he was such a man who was identifying talent. He groomed future leaders, of which unfortunately he did not live to act, because he had trained Southerners, Northerners, Easterners. Mm-hmm. Southern, Vernon J. Mwanga, was being groomed. Kebi Musogotwane, Southern Province. Mm-hmm. Western Province, there were two young people that were also being groomed to take over to become future leaders when he is gone. But I think the one-party state brought him other ideas that he overstayed in government. But he had planned succession plan very well with the young people coming up. You could read about the Vernon Mwangas, the Lupia Bandas, the Alexander Chikwandas, this other guy who his son is in South Africa. He was training young people. And he genuinely, honestly fought corruption. Everywhere he went, he talked about corruption and its offshoots of hunger, disease, and poverty. One day, Panji came from Sindamisari when he had found the farm there. The reports were that Panji was smuggling. I don't know whether it was cement or something with fish. It's in Malawi. So we went there, and Kenneth Kaunda is furious on his son. I'm told you are smuggling. I don't, what affects you affects me. But who said I'm smuggling? He said, no, I'm told. Who told you? Because they used to quarrel.
Yes. Reports have coming.
Yes, the president reviewed, the prime minister. Kevin Sowotwane told me that this is what you do. Panji did not say goodbye to his father. He went to the prime minister's office. He just went in there and said, I'm told you told my father I'm smuggling. What am I smuggling? Musokotwane shivered because he had no facts. So he wanted to fight corruption. And he wanted to run a state away from his family. When Kambarage had committed that offense in a journalist asked him, he says, Mr. President, what would you do if your son committed murder? He had not known then that Kambarage was in that situation. Mm-hmm. You know what he said? I was given this job to look after the people of Zambia. If my son commits murder or any heinous offense, and it requires me to sign for his death sentence, the law says he must die, I will sign that paper and mourn my son as my son. But I will do the duty that they gave me to sign the death sentence for my son. He did not have any favors of either a child or he didn't treat me. Sometimes when you are with him, mm-hmm. you got more favors from him than what Panji could get. Me and Panji and Gesho Musonda were the last ones to have lunch with him. The last 2 weeks before he was taken ill, mm-hmm. which he never came back,
right.
We had lunch. I said, Mr. President, I want you to bless me. He went and gave me a white handkerchief.
You have it?
I have it, but it's at home. I've kept it in my special place.
So souvenir.
A souvenir.
Yeah.
He said he was looking forward to 100 years because he had kept himself very well. He had forgiven, I think you have read, what he had forgiven everybody who may have offended him. He went a happy man. He led this country with dignity and honesty. This is what we should demand from our leaders. And I think I personally should give special commendation to our women. Mm-hmm. My own experience is that Kenneth Kaunda was brought up by his mother. She imparted those strong values herself, which he lived on. And I've come also to look at this current president, HH. He also was brought up by his mother. I saw a picture which I equated Helen and Kenneth and Betty. There is a picture of Helen Kaunda, Betty Kaunda, and Kenneth Kaunda, three standing. I've also seen a similar picture of Hakainde Hichilema, his mother, and Mutinta. I think you have seen that picture. So these, let's see, this president is doing fantastic things, amazing things.
Right.
Amazing things, which Kaunda did. Had HH taken over from Kaunda, I think we should have been very far now. We should have been where we wanted to be.
Not where we are.
Not where we are. We are now at where we are because we had lost it for 20 or so years.
All right, very interesting. And to our viewers out there, this is the big Sunrise Breakfast. And of course, today is the 28th of April. We're looking and celebrating the legacy of Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, Zambia's founding president. And of course, he made a number of speeches which are now memorable, and we'll always refer to them. But for now, we'll quickly take a listen to one of the speeches that this great man had made. As we'll be getting back in studio, we have Ambassador George Zulu, former High Commissioner and also a senior citizen, joining us, Mr. Dante Saunders. Stay tuned, don't go away.
Fidelity Stores has new items from a brand you can trust, Electromaster.
When looking for electrical home appliances, look no further than Electromaster, a brand you can trust.
Items include blenders, steam and dry pressing irons, mini cooker and ovens, single plate cooker, double plate cooker, single and double deep fryers, 18-inch stand fan, sandwich maker and toasters, rice cookers in all shapes and sizes, pizza pans, gas stoves and kerosene stoves, hair dryers, food processors and electric kettles. All items available at all Fidelity Stores outlets.
Electromaster, a quality product of Fidelity Stores.
Hurry now while stocks last. Fidelity Stores, quality goods, affordable prices.
Time to think about how you can grow your business in northern Luapula and part of Muchinga province. Kasama Radio is here to help you grow bigger and better. Advertise your products and services with Kasama Radio, as we have excellent services, wide network coverage, crystal clear transmission. For business advertisement, program sponsorship, call our marketing department on 0779 815445. 0779-815445 or 0977-664645, 0977-664645, or email us on kasamaradio@gmail.com, or better still, visit our website www.kasamafmradio.com or our Facebook page Kasama Radio Limited 87.7 FM. Kasama Radio Limited, your joy is our pride.
It ends with me. It ends with Malaria me. Will end with Malaria you. Ends with me. It ends with you. It ends with me. Neba, neba, neba. Ukazikona muneti, neba. Malaria sisanka, you a neighbor. So protect your family, my neighbor. Oh, wow, get tested. Ulinaka fever, get tested. Ulinaka headache, get tested. Together we can end malaria.
This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Health with support from the Churches Health Association of Zambia. Malaria ends with me.
Paying for groceries the old way.
3, 4, 5.
I don't even know what she's doing.
7, 8, 9.
Allow me.
Paying for groceries with the My Airtel app. You have the power in your pocket. The power to conveniently pay for goods and services. Unlock that power with the My Airtel app. Visit the App Store or Google Play now.
That's my wife. Yeah, let me just take this quick.
Hello, Pesa Nyumba? Yes, madam. My men are on the ground. Balecha nakalaka dark trim color mwale fire mixed naka sunset gold. You like it? In Kateshi. Kateshi is a magical color. For you to appreciate it, I know. Me, I'm a woman of class. I love quality things. But I'm a rubbish. I'm not a paint.
Narukamba ine. Let's buy colossal quality paint. Osati mapratanga paint ya. Me, I'm just a painter.
Clearly, there's no paint job quite like a colossal paint job. Choose from a variety of high-quality coats that will give you a professional finish every time.
Wow! This is exactly what I wanted!
Colossal. Paint like no other.
Zambia does not have the capacity to strike back at the enemy because the enemy has been prepared for the last 60, 70 years, South Africa, for the last 54 years, Rhodesia. What's more, centuries behind them coming from the Western countries, vested interests. That is the correct analysis of the problem. And unless you understand it in this way, you will be misled by the enemy. The enemy is bent on destroying your Morero, Zambians. We in Zambia are peaceful people, peace-loving. I challenge anyone to say today here that Zambia is a warmongering nation. I met John Foster, the arch-fascist and racist, on the bridge, in search of peace. I failed. Joshua Nkomo came here and said he was going to make another try. I said, Joshua, don't. This thing is dirty. He said, I must try. I said, you are a free man. He went to Salisbury. For weeks he was there. He failed. He was in search of peace. Ian Smith has come here. And I knew I would be subject to misunderstanding by my colleagues in frontline countries, by my colleagues on the continent, by my colleagues and others in the whole world. I have allowed Smith to come here on a number of occasions in search of peace. But I'm a man with a conscience, clear conscience. God is hearing me. I can never sell out Africa. Never. Not me. Not these boys here. Not these girls here. We are men and women of principle. We have done all these things in search of peace. But it has to be genuine peace, based on sincere, genuine majority rule. Anything else, you can kill us. Zambians will be born out of our blood, will continue to fight. We are such a people.
Where was this at Mulungushi?
All right, interesting. The legacy of Dr. Kenneth Kaunda lives on this morning. And from that, and I think off air, we were trying to have a conversation on how this man fought for unity of purpose and also peace. Let me start with you, Mr. Saunders. With his legacy, with what he fought for, uniting, peace, and not just peace locally, but across our borders. this legacy? What was his drive?
Well, I mean, to simplify the issue, and for us now who are living here in Zambia, you know, you can never be peaceful, you can never be safe in this big house of yours if your neighbor next door is not also safe and living well. You can't guarantee that you'll be peaceful. So that is the way the President Kaunda looked at it. You know, he believed in peaceful resolutions, not only at local level, but even at international level. You know, unfortunately, I didn't have the privilege of working with the President as close as Ambassador Zulu did. You know, I was in the background in a business fraternity. So for us, we had our rules and regulations. You know, even when you were running companies such as the ones I was running, we never looked at huge profits and stuff like that there because you were not allowed to. You know, we're simply not allowed to over-exaggerate your prices and things like that there. He kept us all under control. And, you know, but for peace and stability at international level, I think Ambassador Zulu here can elaborate a little bit more on it. But there was peace and harmony in Zambia. And I think the only time when we thought that maybe the stability, peace and stability may not hold on very well was when we began the movement, you know, the MMD, when it became open that we were now ready to challenge for, to challenge President Kaunda at the election. We thought that maybe there might be some skirmishes here and there. But again, President Kaunda took the right way out, decided to sit down with the people, and we talked about peace and stability in the future of this country and how he felt it should be, and so on and so on. And mind you, at that particular point in time, if the President Kaunda was selfish, he still had another 2 years to go. 2 years to go before his term of office expires constitutionally. But he opted, he says, if it's the wishes of the people that we should have elections now, I'm willing to go for it. So let's go for it in order to save, you know, in order to maintain peace and stability in this country. He opted to forfeit the 2 years. That's, you know, another very amazing thing. You would never get that in today's Africa, in Africa. You certainly won't get it in Zambia. But can you imagine, at that time, the President Kaunda agreed to do that. So he was great in many ways. Yes, I had my little bit of political differences here and there. And, you know, I loved all the, I never had any enemies per se. In fact, you're talking about Panji. Panji was a very good golfing partner of mine, you know, not because his father was president, no. Because Panji in himself was a good guy, is still a good guy, and we just happened to click together at the golf club, and we played many games together as partners. So, you know, the rest really is history, and, you know, Ambassador here can explain about the peace and stability outside of the country.
Yeah, I think you need to start locally. Here is what seems to be a great foundation, Ambassador, on peace that Dr. Kenneth Kaunda laid. And like it is on order that says, the first cut is the deepest. He made the foundation, but how are you looking at even how we were lying on this foundation? Was it so strong to bring us to where we are now, or What is your thought?
Well, we saw in the clip that we are a peace-loving nation. Peace-loving nation. Zambians love peace. Even our struggle to get independent did not come through the barrel of the gun like our friends in South Africa, Namibia, Angola, and others. We had even a song which said, Kuli bemuntu wina, oposa kaunda, omenya nkondo, dima uoka. You remember that song?
I'm hearing this song for the first time.
Oh, it was very common. We fought by word, not by guns. It was a stone. There is a stone thrower in Kitwe. There is that statue.
Yes.
Mposamau. We fought peacefully, using words to the British. When we got independent, we were now struggling for supremacy of the parties, the ANC versus unity. And at every election, there was bloodshed, so people dying. So Kenneth Kaunda decides the best way to stop this, because it is a new thing, let's come up with a one-party state. To do that, he had to talk to Nkumbula. He had to talk to Harry, and they traveled to Choma to sign a peace agreement, which is called the Choma Declaration. That was a peace effort. When there was a tussle between the Bemba candidate, Simon Mwansaga Pwepwe, against an Easterner candidate, Vice President Ruben Chitandiga Kamanga, the Eastern Province were so angry, they wanted to break away from Zambia. You have heard of Umozi Kumawa. They wanted the border to be at Luangwa Bridge. Kaunda went on his knees to beg the Easterners, the leaders from Eastern Province, to come back to the fort. Signed the Balotse Agreement so that Zambia can be a unitary state, it can be one state. It was all in search of peace. So Kenneth Kaunda was genuinely a peacemaker. A search for peace was embedded in his genes. He wanted Zambia to live and succeed peacefully. Genuine peace. Then we had problems. As you know, we were surrounded by countries that were not independent, that were not like us. In Southern Africa, there was Ian Smith on the south, Vorster or Smart in South Africa, then Salazar in Mozambique and Angola, and we had Ian Smith. Just before we turned 1 year to our independence, he declared UDI in Rhodesia. And that affected us greatly. We were being attacked. Zambians were dying. Our economic infrastructures were being destroyed. Zambia had to bring economic fuels by air. Then he decided to start engaging, welcoming the ANC. Says, this means that our independence means nothing unless these countries are also free. Then our economic development will take place. So we will support the ANC, SWAPO, Namibia, MPLA and UNITA in Angola, and all of the people that were aspiring to get free, to free themselves. Kenneth Kaunda said, no, we'll support you. By not fighting from here, but talking from here. The South African government even banned the ANC in South Africa when they came here. They had their headquarters here. Yeah. Kaunda told Nelson Mandela in prison, Oliver Tambo here, to form a strong organization in South Africa. Otherwise, the ANC will be forgotten. It will be forgotten by the people because it is banned. So the people in South Africa will forget the existence of the ANC. They will just look at you as troublemakers. Mm-hmm. He is the one who initiated the formation of Inkatha. Inkatha Wakukululela. It was an organization that was going to group the South Africans as a cultural group, not as a political party, mm-hmm. in search of peace. He was misunderstood, it is true, when he started talking to Vorster, Ian Smith. But all of the independence discussion of these countries were done in Lusaka. Here, in Lusaka. So, the independence of Zimbabwe was done from Lusaka. It was from Lusaka that they went to Lancaster House in England. Robert Mugabe, Joshua Nkomo, Kenneth Kaunda, and others. They went to discuss the independence of Zimbabwe from here, from Lusaka. The independence of Frelimo were done here. When in Mozambique, they rose against each other. Renamo rises against. It was here where the discussion for a peaceful settlement in Mozambique was done. Samora Machel came here to come and talk peace in here. That's when he was assassinated by South Africans. From here, they had a meeting in Mbala. When he was going back, he was shot at, and died with a Zambian. Mm-hmm. Our ambassador, Sikumba, Cox Sikumba, died with Samora Machel in that plane in search of peace. Kaunda lived for peace. Like Dante said, the time of MMD came, and Kaunda saw that the people want change. We can't delay the people's desire. He cut short his term of office so that we can go to elections. He lost elections in 1991 to MMDA, and he peacefully went to ZNBC to surrender and congratulate the victor because he wanted peace. He had the whole army to himself. All of the soldiers were behind him. All of the intelligence were behind him, the OP, everybody. If he wanted, he would have refused. Like we are hearing now that, no, we would have refused. No, you don't create peace like that. You have got to think about people and peace of your country.
Great.
So we, 73 tribes, have lived together peacefully. So we are a peace-loving nation here. We should not tamper with the peace that we have enjoyed as a people of Zambia.
All right, beautiful. I know with this conversation we can go on and on and on, but broadcasting is time-bound. And on that note, let me end with your, as we summarize and end up, how would you want, as a nation, to remember KK?
Well, I think we need to be very proud and remain privileged to have had a president like President Kaunda. We should emulate him, not only in words but also in deeds. And you know, my dream in Zambia is to try to see how best governments can follow the wise leadership of President Kaunda. Yes, indeed, I had personally had some differences here and there with him on certain issues. Like, for instance, I didn't agree that we should be a one-party state,
right.
And I thought that he should have opened it up a little bit earlier. But nevertheless, you know, when you come to look at the good things that is done for this country and weigh them up, I think you'll find that the issues where my differences was with him is so minimal that it's, you know, I can't help but say that he's been a great leader and a wonderful inspiration, not only to Zambia, but I think to Africa as a whole. If we can see some of our leaders also follow in his footsteps, I think we can see Africa developing very, very, very quickly, because one of the biggest problems that we are having is that we try to bring our tribalism into an issue, you know, when if a politician fails in his duty, he thinks that it's, when you want to discipline a person, he thinks, no, you, if it's me, for instance, people will say, you know, the colored people are not doing A, B, C, D, which is completely different. You know, I think that we must recognize that there are people out there, you know, not only in Zambia, but in Africa, the whole of Africa, that all they want is opportunities created. And President Kaunda gave a lot of opportunities. I was one of the beneficiaries of those kind of opportunities that he made for the young people. You know, I got a loan from the bank very, very quickly. I started a business, and I never looked back. I never looked back. I paid back my loans, and I never looked back at all. That was President Kaunda's vision. That time, can you imagine? We're talking about 60 years ago. That time, his vision was there. You know, he didn't want to give people handouts. He wanted to create opportunities for you. And this is what I see HH is also doing, create opportunities for people. You know, and I think if we had, like Ambassador said, if HH had taken over immediately from President Kaunda rather than MMD mentality, I think Zambia would have been way ahead. We wouldn't have found ourselves in the economic mess that we are in and the political mess that we are in today, you know, where you see, you know, can you imagine in our days, who could have insulted the head of state in Kaunda's time? You would never even dream it, not even the president. But you couldn't even insult anyone who was in an official position. No matter how small your position may have been, you couldn't just insult people. Like the way we are seeing presidents being insulted left, right, and center today. You know, where you see corruption is like normal now. It's normal. So, you know, I have a lot of respect for President Kaunda, and may his soul rest in peace. And may the people of Zambia remember him, not only being the first president of Zambia, but a person who fought for this country, fought for the rights of our people, and brought us to where we are today.
All right.
It's up to us as individuals to improve upon it.
All right. Ambassador, with your last words, how would you like this man to be remembered?
Thank you. I think the Zambian people should remember KK as a gift to this country. a great gift that was given to us by God our Creator. They should remember a honest president who did everything honestly. They should remember Kenneth Kaunda, a man who loved this country with all his heart, soul, and spirit. We should remember KK as a father who looked at everybody, all Zambians, as equals. No Calabar, no black, no white, no Senga, no Tumbuka, no Bemba, no, everybody as a Zambian. He taught also, he left a message before he departed of love. We must love one another. He said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. But above all, love your God, your Creator. So we should remember that here is a man who left us love. We should not depart from love. To the current leaders, all of them, from the president to his colleagues, they should know that love will conquer all their problems. They should find room to reconcile our problems. Our problems or their political problems are not beyond reconciliation. We should reconcile and give each other opportunities. This president, I wished people could believe me. When I last took the president to Kenneth Kaunda to have a meeting, he left. Panja and I were told, if you are going to help him with all your heart. Do clean business 3 times. Clean business. We need a strong Zambia, a strong personality. Kaunda stood for HH twice, using me, the one you are talking to now.
Right.
The first one was when we were forming the UDA. When Mazoka died, you remember what Kaunda said at the graveside? If there is anybody here who does not believe in the ideals of this young man, Zwamu Zambia, the MMD protested. We came, we formed UDA, United Democratic Alliance, between UNIP, FDD, and UPND. There were problems there. One leader did not want this one to, so it ended up between Tilienji and Hakainde to campaign. We didn't lose that one. Michael Chirufyasata sent me to go and talk to HH if he could accept to work together in 2008 so that they can defeat the MMD. Both of them agreed. HH agrees, SATA agrees. But it was a venue. Where are we going to meet? Yeah. Because I can't go to PF. And SATA says I can't go to UPND. I went to Kenneth Kaunda's office. I told him, Mr. President, these people want to meet. They're looking for a venue. Can you allow to meet here? KK says, no, young man. That young man, tell him to come to my house. My home is their home. We went to his house. That's where we sat. Panji was made chairman. Kaunda says, the idea is good, but I don't want to sit in that meeting so that I can be seen to be influencing either. When you finish, come and brief me at my office. That means Kaunda should be remembered as a person who wanted reconciliation in this country. Right. People to work together as Zambians. Then we achieve one thing, peace and development. Justice will only come if we can reconcile each other. We have differences, yes, but we need to find room for each other to reconcile. I think as we remember KK, we should urge our political colleagues like Dante to urge our leaders, especially the current president and his predecessor. They need to find room for each other. Then we are going to honor the legacy of Kenneth Kaunda. But may peace prevail. Kaunda be remembered. Hamba kahle, KK.
I think we need to also end off by singing his
Ambassador,
favorite song.
tune it.
Tiende pamozi ndi mtima umo.
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 Amai tiye
pamozi.
Hakainde tiye ni mwe.
Tiye pamozi, tiende pamozi ndi mtima umo.
Halungu tiye hakainde tiye ni mwe.
Tiye pamozi, tiende pamozi ndi mtima umo.
One Zambia,
one nation.
One Zambia,
one nation.
God bless Zambia.
All right, beautiful Ambassador and Mr. Saunders, thank you so much for making an appearance this morning.
Thank you very much for inviting me to
All right, great. We have been looking at the legacy of Dr. Kenneth Kaunda for today's edition of the Big Sunrise Breakfast. And here with me in studio, I've been speaking with a senior citizen and political activist, Mr. Dante Saunders, and also Ambassador George Zulu. On behalf of the entire production here at Movie Television, my name is Keith Mwemba. Likewise and always, not just today, it's one Zambia and one nation. Good morning.
Thank you.